think we'll start even though we're 2 minutes early. So we have come to the last day. Remember, we're in the chariot with Krishna, and he's been instructing us all week. And then starting tomorrow, we have to go fight the battle. But we still have one more day where Krishna will help us understand. Almost every chapter of the Gita begins with Arjuna saying, Krishna, I am confused about this, or Krishna, please explain this. And then the chapter unfolds of Krishna explaining. So we came here confused about many things, and Krishna has been explaining to us. So, but tomorrow we have to pick up our bow and go out and fight our own battles. Let's begin with the prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswar, beloved Guru, Paramahansa Yogananda Ji, Saints of all religions, we humbly bow to you all. Beloved Krishna, continue to instruct us, from within, through our intuition, and from without, through all of our spiritual practices. Help us cut the confusion until we reside in Thee. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. The Gita is about attainment of moksha, or freedom. Moksha means confusion and cutting that confusion. So the Gita starts with Arjuna being confused. Krishna cuts that, and at the end he asks Arjuna, are you still confused? And Arjuna says, no, I'm no longer confused. So we have that journey, and we're well on that journey. Yes, okay. See, Krishna only needs to instruct by gesture.
Please stand.
And now the conch returns to our house for a rest.
Okay, so this is just a summary. What we are doing. As we said at the beginning, this course is a pilot course for what we're going to be calling the signature course for the institute that's emerging in India. And the goal behind it is to create a system to show how universal principles in the Gita apply to you, to help you identify your spiritual goals and practical goals in life, to clarify the tendencies and habits you want to change, and to offer you assignments and activities that will make it real for you, and to give you tools and techniques that you can continue in your journey. So once someone said to Master something about your path is very mystical. And he said, oh, it's not mystical at all. It's very practical. And his path is practical, but it can take us through the insightful techniques and practical advice to the most high states of mystical awareness. So it's a beautiful blending of the two. Okay, so first I'll tell you a little bit what's going to happen today, if all goes well. We're going to finish the last two Navratna, devotion and self-realization. And then we're going to have a period where we have some wonderful questions. I don't know if we'll get through them all, but we'll answer questions. And then we're going to leave the last half hour or so for you to create a game plan. And we'll explain it a little more so you don't need to be all nervous and worried about it. But that will be the flow of it. And then we'll, of course, end with our I am meditation at the end. Okay, so our topic, our first Navratna is devotion. And let me read the Gita shloka. This is from the last chapter, nearly the last one or two verses. Again, hear now my supreme word, the most secret and sacred of all, because you are dearly beloved by me. I offer it now for your highest benefit. Absorb yourself in me. Be wholly devoted to me. Worship and bow to me alone. So shall you undoubtedly reach me. This I promise. I promise you faithfully. For you are dear to me. Forsaking all other dharmas, remember me alone. I will free you from all sin. Do not grieve. The explanation: the heart's feelings are pivotal. When our emotions are negative, our consciousness contracts. When we guide the feelings in an upward and expansive direction, we not only move towards superconsciousness, but also magnetically draw the support of the universe. And we'll do the affirmation and, in fact, the technique a little bit later. Okay, so what is devotion? Simply, it has so many connotations, doesn't it? But simply, in the context we've been talking about, devotion is bringing the energy of the self-awareness upward and inward in the spine to centers of higher awareness. And when the energy of the heart flows outward and downward, we get involved in things, attachments, desires. But when it's flowing inward and upward, it really infuses every aspect of our life, and we'll talk about that. And you know, all paths in the Gita and in the teachings of yoga, they talk about the 4 different paths. And we think of bhakti yoga as devotional, and chanting to an image of God or the guru and so forth, worshiping something outside of yourself. But we need to understand that the goal of every one of the paths, bhakti, devotion, karma yoga, action, jnana yoga, discrimination, and Raja Yoga, the goal of all of them is the same. All roads lead to Rome. And I have to pause here. Right before we left India, we were staying in a hotel for the last 2 weeks. And there was a very nice young man who was the waiter that waited on our table, nice young Indian man, early 20s. And he said to us, one of the last days, "Are you going to learn to speak Hindi?" And I said, "Well, I don't know." He said, "You know, if you don't know basic words, there's always a barrier. You know what they say, when in Rome." And I said, we will try. Anyway, all roads lead to Rome, all the paths. And one of my favorite stories that Master told about the true nature of devotion and bhakti is the story from the life of the great Indian saint and princess Mirabai. And she wrote beautiful, beautiful bhajans that are still sung today, filled with love of Krishna, love of God. And being a princess at a certain point in her life, she was married to a ruler of another kingdom who was a fine man, a noble leader, dharmic person. But he didn't, she said, "Come and join me in my devotions." No. And she was saddened because he never seemed to have any devotion. She couldn't share her love for God with him. And then one night, as they were sleeping, she heard in his sleep her husband kind of talking very gently to himself, "Oh, my beloved Lord, oh, my beloved Lord, oh, my beloved." And she was so elated. She woke up and she said, "Now I know your secret. I know you are a lover of God." And he said, "Don't say another word." And she said, "But my dear, I am so happy to realize we can share our path together." And he said, "I beg you, don't say another word." And she said, "But how can I not say now that I know you are a lover of God?" And he paused and he said, "I wish you would have listened to me, because I made a pledge to my beloved God. If anyone ever knew of my devotion, I wanted to keep it only in my heart between me and God. I would leave the body." And he sat in meditation and left the body. So, and Master said he was a deeper bhakti than she was, because it was, the energy was much more internalized. And so true devotion is an inward state. You don't need to wear your heart on your sleeve, as they say. So when the heart's feelings are directed upward, it isn't just about devotion and love for God. It influences every aspect of your life. The physical. When we don't have, we're not bound by, oh, I want this and I want that, and likes and dislikes, and I don't like this. Our energy becomes released, and we have so much more energy to direct to what we're doing, instead of just, and that's Krishna's dilemma right at the beginning. I don't know what to do. I don't know how to fight. What if I should fight? And then Krishna fills him with a vision that it's all God, and everything we do is an expression of our love for God. And then he gets clarity. And so even, and he summons up his energy. So people of great devotion don't imagine that they just sit around and chant all the time. Everything that Kriyananda Swamiji did was an expression of his devotion to his guru. Every book he wrote, every lecture he gave, every song he composed, it was all born of devotion. So devotion infuses us, and infuses us with health and well-being, because we're cutting off all the little extraneous things that drain our energy. It gives us greater ability to change our habits. Because out of love for God, we want to change. It isn't just, you are a bad person and you shouldn't do this. And it's like, I don't want to be this way. Because I know if I can free myself of improper physical habits, I will become closer to you. And so it infuses our ability to do that. And then finally, the last statement up there, the difference between loving what you do and doing what you love. Often I hear people say, oh, I just want to do what I love. And that's fine. I mean, we should all be able to do that. But more important, because let's face it, life is filled with many, many routine, boring obligations that we just have to get through. And we can either resent them, or we can say, I love this. I love what I have to do, whatever it may be. I've told this story sometimes, but when our son was a little boy, little toddler, and one of the big things that happens to parents is washing and drying and folding clothes. It was a big part of my life at that time. And I didn't mind the washing and the drying, because that you just sort of put it in the machine. But the folding, although we just saw that somebody is inventing an automatic folding machine. But I would resent it. And then I thought, you know, you're really wasting a lot of time in this negative vortex of, I don't like this. Try to think, this is my God-given mission. God has chosen me to fold these clothes, and let me love it. And it was a turning point in my life. That was 42 years ago, and it's still a pleasant task for me. I thought, okay, I can fold this way, and then I'll put them in these little piles, and then first I'll put this away and that away. And it was like, if you put energy into it, you love it. That's the secret. The heart's energy infuses. So yes, it's good to do what you love, but it's more important to love what you do and put love for God in everything that you do. Swami tells a story in The New Path of one of his brother disciples, Norman, who is a bit of a character, but a beautiful soul. And one day they were building, I can't remember which church it was, but they were nailing studs, the wooden beams that go underneath the sheetrock. And Norman was being very, very careful how he hit each nail so it wouldn't mar the wood and so forth. And then someone said, "What are you taking so much time for this? Nobody's going to see it." And he said, "Oh, you're wrong. Christ will see it." And so if we just think everything we do, every cup of tea we make, whatever it is, do it for love of God, and it's a transforming way to live. On the mental level, devotion, and you wouldn't think this, but it's true, it brings clarity of mind, because we're not so, oh, but I wanted that, and I really need that. We just can focus, and our mind becomes clear. And then also, remember the technique that Master gives, we mentioned it earlier in the week, for developing intuitive guidance. The heart is the pivotal center. We project, if we have a question, we project it from the spiritual eye, clearly, strongly, repeatedly, and then we try to receive the answer, the intuitive whisper from eternity, as Master so poetically calls it. And try to feel it in the area of the heart. And science is discovering that, and this is a fact, the heart has more neural connections than the brain. The wisdom of the heart, of intuitive perception, and when we open our heart through devotion, then we understand. The great woman Saint Ananda Ma was illiterate. There's so many wonderful stories from her life. When people would ask her to sign a photo, she just put a little dot because she couldn't write her name. But Vedic scholars and Sanskrit pundits would come and ask her very, very abstruse and subtle questions, and she would know the answer. Not that she'd studied it, not that she could read Sanskrit, but she knew the open heart is the surest guide to clarity in our making decisions in our life. Emotional, well, this is a little more self-evident, but when our energy moves upward and inward, our feelings become expansive and purified. When they move downward, they become about us. What's in it for me? He was nice to me, so I'll be nice back to him. I like her, so I'll do this for her, but and it's become merchant consciousness. But when there's no merchant consciousness, when it's just the expanding love for God that reaches out to touch everything, everyone. Again, from the life of Ananda Ma, I'll tell this story quickly, but it's so amazing. She was, this was written by one of her lifelong disciples who came to her as a young, skeptical man, and she was always on the move. And this man kind of was judging her and saying, "She seems so restless. Can't she stay in one place for any period of time?" And then at a certain point she said, "Come, we're going to go travel up to this kind of a remote area where there was a lake and some little cabins." And so they went there, and she said, "Okay, today we're going to have a picnic by the lake." So they all brought food and a picnic by this lake. As soon as they sat down, Ma said, "Time to go." And they said, the skeptical young man was thinking, "Oh my gosh, we can't even eat. She's so restless all the time." And they said, "But Ma, we want to eat." And she said, "You eat, I have to go." So of course they packed everything up, and she was walking along, this is such a touching story. A little bird fell out of a tree, and there was a young boy with her. She said, "Go get the bird." And a little baby bird fell out of a nest, and she said, "Hold it up to me." And he held the bird up to her, and the little bird just looked at Ma and fluttered its wings and then died. And she said, "I felt the soul call of that little bird. He wanted my darshan before he went into a higher form. And so that's where we're going, that expanded, unconditional, all-embracing love when the energy is moving upward and not just about you. One time we were with Swamiji, and I was not in a very good space because he was very busy. We had come over from here to Italy to spend some time with him, and he was very busy, and we hadn't been able to spend much time with him. And I was feeling a little, I started getting into the what about me mode. And I was not my finest moment. And Swami came up to me, and he, in retrospect, so much of what he did was very consciously done for our benefit. And he looked at me and he said, "Devi, no one's special to me. I'm not even special to myself." And that was without any word being exchanged, but he could see where my consciousness was going. So that's the fruit of the expanded consciousness of the heart. And then, of course, spiritual. Devotion is important because it draws us back to our source, and we feel God's presence, His guidance with us at all moments. We feel answers being given, opportunities coming to us, solutions, and not just, it isn't just, oh boy, look at everything I got. In our moments of need, in our confusion, in our darkness, in our pain, in our suffering, there's always a light there when we offer our love to God. So I love a definition of what is grace, God's grace. Well, grace has two meanings. Grace, you think of a graceful dancer or someone who moves with fluidity and elegance. But I like to think of grace, God's grace, as dancing with an unseen partner. So we're always in movement, but with that partner. That's the symbolism of the Rasa Leela of Krishna's dance with the gopis. It's the God's grace coming individually to each one. And devotion is the surest path to self-realization, to God, because it's with our heart's energy that we unlock the entrenched power of the ego. And you know, the heart center in many religious traditions, there are symbols of it. In Judaism, for example, they have the Star of David. And that is, if you take it apart, it's a triangle descending, and that's God's grace coming down in response to the triangle ascending, which is our heart's openness. And when they come together in the heart, that's the perfected being. The cross, too, symbolism of Christianity, it preceded the crucifixion. It isn't just a symbol of Christ on the cross. It's a symbol of God's grace coming down and man opening up his heart to receive it. So all of these things help us to realize the importance of this center. Now, one of the last shlokas from the Gita in chapter, this is chapter 18. And we'll close with this slide. Do we have free will as related to devotion? And Krishna says to Arjuna, this is one of the very last verses, "Thus has wisdom, the most secret and sacred of all secrets, been given to you by me. Reflect on it, then do as you feel." I mean, it's an extraordinary, I've never seen anything like that in anything that I've ever come across. Krishna is spending all this incredible dialogue of truth and the gunas and devotion and dharma and karma. And he said, now I've taught you everything. Do as you feel. And so, do we have free will? We have one choice, the masters tell us. And that choice informs everything else in our life. We have the choice to love God or not love God. That's how he set it all up. Ananda Ma said we have a choice. We can go to the front of the train or the back of the train. Think of it as the spine. We can go upward or we can stay in the back, but that's the only choice we have. But from that choice, everything else unfolds, as we've been talking about. And so Krishna can't fight the battle for us. Very, very important concept. God can't fight the battle against illusion for us. We have to choose to do it. Krishna is telling Arjuna, now I've taught you what's right. You decide what you want to do about it. And that's what this whole week is about. We have tried to the full capacity that we have to share and explain these teachings, but now it's up to you. What do you want to do about it? And that's the choice where we all have. And the highest choice of all, the highest dharma, the highest wisdom, the highest path of all is to love God. And so let's close. I think we'll just do the affirmation for devotion. Please repeat after me. Devotion like a great wave.
Devotion like a great wave.
Carries me upward toward my aspirations.
Carries me upward towards my aspirations.
I open my heart.
I open my heart.
To allow the cleansing waters of love.
To allow the cleansing waters of love.
To purify and uplift my consciousness.
To purify and uplift my consciousness.
Again. Devotion like a great wave.
Devotion like a great wave.
Carries me upward toward my aspirations.
Carries me upward towards my aspirations.
I open my heart.
I open my heart.
To allow the cleansing waters of love.
To allow the cleansing waters of love.
To purify and uplift my consciousness.
To purify and uplift my consciousness.
Whispering. Devotion like a great wave carries me upward toward my aspirations. I open my heart to allow the cleansing waters of love to purify and uplift my consciousness. Now mentally only. Devotion like a great wave carries me upward toward my aspirations. I open my heart to allow the cleansing waters of love to purify and uplift my consciousness. Now once more mentally, but concentrating very deeply at the spiritual eye, trying to break into a superconscious state with these thoughts. Devotion like a great wave carries me upward toward my aspirations. I open my heart to allow the cleansing waters of love to purify and uplift my consciousness. Oh, peace. Amen.
Now we come to the conclusion and summation of it all, which is self-realization. And so I'll read the shloka and the explanation. The shloka is from chapter 13, verse 24. To behold the self, in the self, the purified ego, by the self, the clarified mind. Some seekers follow the path of meditation, some that of knowledge, and some the path of selfless activity. But we're trying to behold our true self in ourself. The explanation is the ultimate goal of life is to expand our consciousness until it becomes infinite. The most direct pathway to this is through deep meditation. So this is the definition that Master gave of self-realization. Self-realization is the knowing in all parts of body, mind, and soul that you are now in possession of the kingdom of God, that you do not have to pray that it come to you, that God's omnipresence is your omnipresence, and that all you need to do is improve your knowing. God's omnipresence is our omnipresence, and all we have to do is improve our understanding of that. So, in a sense, self-realization is inevitable, but it is not easy. Swami, and I think from Master, told a tale, or an example of a young boy about 7 or 8, who sees a guru in the Ganges, and he's very attracted to him. And so the young boy wades out, and he says, "Guruji, I want to study with you. I want to find God." And the guru takes him, grabs his hair, and pushes his head underwater, and holds it there for a long time, and then finally brings it back up. And he says to the boy, "Now what did you want most?" He says, "Air, air, I wanted to breathe, I wanted to breathe." Guru says, "When you want God as much as that, come back to me." And of course the boy thought, well, that's a little extreme. I think I'll go find some other way. So that's Arjuna saying at the beginning of the Gita, this is a little extreme. I've got to kill all my relatives. It's too much. I won't fight. And then at the end of the Gita, almost the last verse, but a few before the last, Krishna says to Arjuna, if indulging your ego, you should determine, I will not fight, you would have to fight anyway. Obliged to do so by nature, your own as well as cosmic, your nature. So, in order to help us understand that, I want to tell a little tale. Now, this could be on the internet, I don't know, and if it's on the internet, of course it's true. So anyway, the tale goes like this, that shortly after the movie Superman came out, there was a scientist who had seen that, and he came to a revelation, and he realized that like Superman, all of us have little tiny particles of kryptonite all in our cells, and that kryptonite will never rest until it gets back to its home planet. And so it's driving us, but we don't know the kryptonite is there. And so it's driving us so that we're constantly feeling like we're not at home, we're not there yet, we want something, we need something more, and we keep trying to find that something more, and it's really the kryptonite that's driving it, but we don't know that. So we try it in money, we try it in power and relationships, and we do this for a long, long time, and nothing ever seems to work. And as Master said, behind every rose bush of pleasure hides the rattlesnake of disappointment. And so no matter what we try, outwardly, it doesn't work because that kryptonite is trying to get back to its home planet. Well, of course, this scientist was just laughed at. The scientific community didn't accept this tale. And you and I would laugh at it too. You and I, we're pretty sure, aren't we, that we aren't filled with kryptonite? At least I've got a good idea that I'm not. So anyway, we discard that. But that was back in, I don't know when Superman came out, 1940, 1930. So it was back 80, 90 years ago. But now, in our day and age, there's this huge atom smasher in Switzerland. It's a huge tunnel about 15 miles around, and the atoms go through there, or the particles go through there, and they smash together. And so the scientists are beginning to be able this way to look for the subatomic particles. And they're trying to unravel some mysteries in the quantum world, because in the quantum world, which is subatomic particles, they seem to be connected to each other. And not only because you can take a quantum particle with a certain kind of a spin, and you can take it to the space station, and if you change the spin there, if you pair another one to it, they have the same spin. If you change the spin there instantaneously, the paired one on Earth changes its spin too. And that experiment has been done. So it's confusing to the scientists, because it looks like at some level everything is connected to everything else. And not only that, but there's something even more confusing, and that's that at a subatomic quantum level, things seem to have consciousness. That they can be this or that. They aren't anything until we look at them, and they're conscious somehow of the fact that we're looking, and then they freeze into whatever they're going to freeze into, and we think, oh, I'm observing that. So not only are things all connected, but they're conscious, and they're conscious of each other. So now, 2 generations ahead of where we are now, there's a scientist, and he is doing an experiment, and he finds a subatomic particle that is at the heart of every atom. And indeed, he remembers this crazy scientist from 100 years ago who said we all have kryptonite inside of us, and everybody rejected that. But this subatomic particle seems to act in very much the same way. It drives everything in creation. And so he decides to name it blissonite. And so at the heart of every atom of creation are the particles of blissonite, and those particles want to get back to their home planet, which isn't a physical planet. It's a place of consciousness, and they want to get back to that because that's where they came from. And so you and I are filled with that blissonite, and we will never rest, nor will we ever find our happiness in anything outside, because that isn't what's going on. Our bliss is trying to reunite with its source of bliss. And so the whole of the evolutionary path, the whole of the Gita, is a movement toward the realization that once that union takes place, that we're everything in creation, because all of those subatomic particles are connected and conscious, and that's our reality. We're all connected. We're completely conscious. God's omnipresence is our omnipresence. Now let's come back to that boy of 8 years old. You know, he went to the guru, and the guru was a madman, and he left. Well, now he's grown up. He's been through a lot of experiences. He's tried a lot of things, and none of them have made him happy. And so he's remembering back to that experience when he was 8 years old. And he thinks, I wonder if that fellow is still around. Maybe I could go study with him. So he does a search, and he finds out not only is he around, but he's very famous because there are lots of miracles associated with him. Mostly, he's in the Ganges. He just stays there where this boy found him 40 years ago. But when he leaves the Ganges, his clothes are saturated with the water of the Ganges and his skin is wet, and it never seems to dry. No matter how long he wanders the countryside, it never seems to dry. His clothes never seem to dry. And if a drop of that water ever falls on anyone, they're healed of disease and their consciousness is uplifted and they're happy. So this fellow is reading all this stuff and thinking, well, maybe he's got something for me. So he decides to go back, and he finds the guru in exactly the same place that he was when he was 8 years old. And he wanders out to him and he says, Guruji, I'm back. And he says, I'm ready. You can hold my head underwater. And the Guru says, oh, my child, you finally come back. He says, don't be a fool. I don't want to hold your head underwater. All that would do would be to kill your body. That's not what I want, my child. The Ganges isn't the Ganges. The Ganges is just a symbol of the energy of the Sushumna in your spine. I want you to hold your head into that Sushumna. And so he says, I will give you some techniques. I'll give you energization. I'll give you Hong Sa. I'll give you Kriya, and practice those. And as you practice those, and as you want God more than your very breath, those techniques, if you can hold your head in that true Ganges, those techniques will take you out of your breath. Your breath will stop, and you will find God. Now, that's a tale, but the reality is, and Sri Yukteswar explained this, at the time of death, when we pass from this body, the breath stops. The breath is that which holds our soul, connects our soul to the body. The breath stops, and if we have desires for things of this physical plane, we're going to return to this physical plane. Now, how can we not have desires for the things of this physical plane, especially if it's all we've ever known? If we've never had anything more than that, then obviously, just like that kryptonite, just like that blissonite, it hasn't found its home, so it has to express, as Anandamoyi Ma said, joy is the true food for the mind, and we will always be hungry until we find that bliss to eat. And then she said to her disciples, don't correct those who are looking in other places. They're starving. And that's the only food they can find. This physical plane is the only food that we can find. But if through these deep techniques we can go beyond the breath, then the consciousness leaves the body, and we realize not only do we not die, but we go into an astral realm. This is what Sri Yukteswar was saying in our little daily calendar just about 4 or 5 days ago. We go into an astral realm, and our consciousness realizes how much more beautiful, how much more wonderful that is. And then when we're ready to, then it comes back to the body, but when we're ready to die, it has those comparisons. So its desires now are not for desires on the physical plane, they're for desires on the astral plane. And when that happens, the energy comes forward, and we don't have to reincarnate anymore. Not on the physical plane. We go to the astral plane. Then we have to do the same thing between the astral plane and the causal plane. But it's a lot nicer. So, that blissonite is trying to return to its own state. and our own nature will, which is that bliss, will compel us to carry on the fight. So we've come from bliss. We'll never, ever rest until we achieve that bliss. And as Master's most advanced disciple, Rajarshi Janakananda, said, we have to find that in some lifetime. Why waste time? Let's do it in this lifetime. The opposing forces are going to die. As the intensity for God becomes stronger and stronger, those material desires and delusions just fall away. And that bliss will never let us rest. Master said, the time for knowing God has come. Let's do the affirmation for self-realization. Close your eyes, please. Life is an adventure in self-awakening.
Life is an adventure in self-awakening.
I will realize who and what I really am.
I will realize who and what I really am.
Not the body nor the mind.
Not the body nor the mind.
But a spark of the infinite.
But a spark of the infinite.
Life is an adventure in self-awakening.
Life is an adventure in self-awakening.
I will realize who and what I really am.
I will realize who and what I really am.
Not the body nor the mind.
Not the body nor the mind.
But a spark of the infinite.
But a spark of the infinite.
And whispering, life is an adventure in self-awakening. I will realize who and what I really am. Not the body nor the mind, but a spark of the infinite. Silently, life is an adventure in self-awakening. I will realize who and what I really am. Not the body nor the mind, but a spark of the infinite. And concentrating, bringing it into the superconscious. Life is an adventure in self-awakening. I will realize who and what I really am. Not the body nor the mind, but a spark of the infinite. Okay, now we will do some questions. We're running 22 minutes behind, so we'll do some questions and we'll try to end a little, not quite a half hour. We'll leave 15 minutes to get you started on the final exercise. And I'll give you some instructions, thanks to our friend Michael, who has helped us a lot through the times.
Okay, let's start with this question. How does one complete grief without repressing negative emotions that then can create a disease in the body? By completing grief, I mean releasing the complex emotions that are necessary to release and heal from loss, especially sudden loss or death of loved ones. Well, this is an important question because people often say, well, are what you're saying to be even-minded and cheerful, is this just about faking it? Is it about if you're feeling unhappy or grief or pain, is it just to say, well, you know, I'm just going to override that? Well, it's complex. It isn't yes or no. Repressing, in fact, it says in the first chapter of the Gita, suppress, Arjuna saying, I won't do this, I won't fight, and Krishna said, suppression is of no avail. So just pushing things down doesn't work. We have to deal with them, but we need to deal with them from an uplifted consciousness. That's the difference. How does one deal? I remember when my father passed away, And I went back to be with my mother, who is a very centered person, and all the relatives came over, and they were all emotional and crying, and oh, they were drawing her into that. And finally I just said, our family just needs to be alone right now. And I gently ushered them from the house. And then my mom was fine, because she wasn't that she hadn't lost, wasn't grieving for the loss of a lifelong partner, but she was doing it from a place of being centered. And there's this story from a biography of Lahiri Mahashaya, where he actually had four sons?
2 sons and 3 daughters,
yeah.
I think.
And one of his daughters became very ill and died. And she was a grown woman. And at this point, Lahiri had retired from working as accountant for British Engineering Corps, and he would just have his little Gita discourses every night. And the students said, "Oh, Master, we know you must be grieving so much. We won't have the Gita discourse tonight." And Lahiri said, "No, it's fine. Let's go ahead and have it." And they said, "Oh, but our hearts are so rent from this loss, we can't concentrate." He said, "Well, if you can't concentrate, then fine, we won't do it, but I'm fine to do it." And then one of the disciples asked, "But Master, aren't you feeling grief at the loss of your daughter?" And he looked, and it was a very instructive response. He said, "I probably feel much more pain than you do," because it was someone that I had a direct connection with. "But I have trained my mind." He said, your minds are soft and impressionable. And so when a blow comes, like if there's a block of marble on soft, wet mud, when a blow comes, it leaves an impression. He said, "I have disciplined my mind. My mind does not waver. So it is like a block of marble, a plate of marble. And when another plate is put on it and a blow comes, no impression is left." And so, to the extent we can, approach suffering and loss from an uplifted state of mind, and then those feelings are released in a deeper way, actually, than if you just do it emotionally.
Okay, I'll take a couple that are quick answers. Regarding the initial breathing techniques with the I Am Hong Sa meditation, should we adopt these in our group and individual sadhanas? Now, not necessarily. This meditation was devised, and as all things in this course are, it may get revised. Remember, this baby is only 5 days old now. And so it's going to be growing a lot before it comes out into public and stands on its own. So should we adopt that? This meditation was devised in order to, with the target audience in mind of people coming who are very, very new, but need something very clear and solid to hold on to. So if that's helpful for you, do it. Group meditations, not everybody, especially in the Ananda world, will be at that same level. So I would suggest not in group meditations, but maybe once in a while. It doesn't hurt at all. It's a nice beginning to things. But adapt it or adopt it only as you feel to. And if it works for you, then do it sometimes. But don't feel locked into it. If you're absolutely new, you've never heard of meditation or yoga or anything like that, then it might be a good, solid habit to get you going. And that's its purpose in the Institute.
If one were to focus on the 3 most important aspects of the program, what would they be? Well, I'll put that question back to you. What are the 3 most important things that you individually got from it? That's the most important part. And then the 3 pieces of advice I would give you, quoting Winston Churchill, never give up, never give up, never ever give up. So those are the 3 pieces of advice I would give.
Okay, how does one maintain balance in devotional service without feeling taken advantage of? Well, that feeling of being taken advantage of, that's one of those soldiers of the Kauravas. Knock him out of your consciousness. Who's taking advantage of who? You know, all this stuff is what is devotion taking advantage? It's just trying to help you throw away that bag of old rags and clothing that you've been dragging around. So if you think somebody's taking advantage of you for trying to get you to drop that luggage, then you need to work on that attitude.
There's a great story from the life of a Christian saint, Saint Joseph of Cupertino, who is a very, very simple man. You know, not just simple in his outward thing, but his mind was simple. We just not educated, barely literate, but a great saint. And he would levitate. In fact, there are many stories of him when as soon as he would begin reading the Bible, he would just start soaring at the top of the church, and the Catholic Church actually kind of put him in semi-house prison because they didn't know what to do with him. But at a certain point, and all the brother monks who were clever, they would always make fun of him. And one time he was cleaning out the stables. That was one of his main jobs. And when the brother monks came in and snickering and said, "Joseph, Joseph, come out, look, there's a cow flying in the sky." And he came running out, and he was looking and looking for the cow flying, and they were all laughing and laughing. And they said, "Oh, you're so foolish. How do you know that cows can't fly?" And he looked at them, not in criticism, but just in direct innocence and heart. He said, "Oh, I would rather believe that cows could fly than that my brother monks would lie to me." And so who takes advantage of who? If your heart is pure, no one can take advantage of you.
That thought, I won't stay on the spiritual path because somebody's taking advantage of me, is one of the 99 brothers. There's lots and lots of others. Your mind will be, the ego, King Material Desire, is infinitely creative in giving you reasons why you shouldn't be doing spiritual practices and trying to evolve. And so when they come, you can either side with them or side with Krishna. But I'd suggest that you side with Krishna.
And our Karma Yoga program here at the well, they have one at the Meditation Retreat and here at the Expanding Light as well. It's such a wonderful training ground for people to realize that service is devotion in action. And it's not, well, why do I have to wash the dishes? I did it yesterday. But it just to live in that flow of that. Whatever we do, if we do it with the consciousness of God, it draws us closer to God.
Okay, during meditation and prayer, I find myself becoming overwhelmed and then distracted and bombarded by all the needs to be healed in my family and in the world. How do I get my prayers in and let go and let God? That's a very, very important question because all of us are distracted. All of us have mental restlessness, and until we can begin to let go of that, we can't really meditate very well. And so there are some tools that are helpful. First of all, pranayama is helpful, and that's why it's given to us, because it helps interiorize the consciousness. Hong Saw is especially helpful because Hong Saw is a bija mantra that helps to calm the movement of prana in the subtle spine. And so by doing that, it will help both calm and to focus the mind. The problem is that we don't do it. We think other thoughts. So that's why Master teaches it simply when your thoughts go to, oh, my family, oh, my problems, oh, my... Bring it back. Concentrate on the breath. So that's, one might say, a meta answer for how to go deeper. Always come back and focus on what you're supposed to be focusing on as soon as the mind wanders. Gradually the mind will come under control. There was a spiritual teacher who gave a very good example. He said that when the elephants would be going through a little village, they're big and nobody could control them, so they'd reach out here and they'd take bananas and they'd take food from all the carts and so on, and the people were saying, don't bring the elephant through my village. And Mahout said, well, I have to. So he gave the elephant a little piece of bamboo, about that long, to hold in his trunk, and he taught him to hold it up very proudly. So now when the elephant went through, he was very proud of holding up his little piece of bamboo. And naturally, he didn't reach out and grab a worry here and a problem there. He just went through. And so Hong Saw and techniques and chanting, all of those things are our little stick of bamboo. So keep bringing the mind back and the mind back until you train your elephant to hold only that. And
now I'll just give a brief answer as well, and then I think we'd better move on to the exercise. But I think we all know the difference, or at least we should try to feel the difference between worrying for somebody and praying for somebody. And when the mind is restless, then you're just churning and you're worrying about them. And what good does that do? Really, not at all. But what we have in our meditation room is a little prayer list, and we change it regularly. And so those names are captured. We don't, did I remember to pray for this person? And what about that person? But we don't pray till after, as concentrated and still as a meditation as we can accomplish. And then when at the end of the meditation, when our mind is calm, interiorized, uplifted, then we look at that list. And then there is power in the prayer, not just restless mulling over, what if this happens and what if that happens. So really the power to be able to help others, it's not our power, and that's an important thing too. We can't heal anybody, we can't change the world, but we can hold our thoughts up to God and say, this is your world. If this person is meant to be healed, let your energy flow. If they're not meant to be healed, let them go in a state of grace, whatever it is. But from inner communion with God, offer your prayers for others in the world, and then they have power and effectiveness to make a difference.
Remember, the homework assignment yesterday was to finish or Wednesday was to finish all of the pyramid of the physical level, to identify goals or habits and so on that you wanted to change. But then continuing from that was to take the inner warriors exercise that you did, the psychological chart exercise that you did, and the balanced life pyramid. All of those goals and ideas and thoughts of what you would like to change, we wanted you to make a complete list of that so that you don't have rattling around in your subconscious, oh, I wish I'd have thought to do that. You've got a whole list of them. Then to take between 3 and 5 of those. So I hope that all of you have come prepared with 3 to 5 things that you really want to accomplish. So take...
Then just do that this time.
Yeah, yes, exactly. That, if you didn't do that, then spend we're going to do this for a little more than 20 minutes. Spend the rest of the time doing that. So then decide from that what you will really commit to doing. And I'm going to read this from our friend Michael, who has a lot of experience. He said, one thought on goal setting, and this comes from the corporate world, commonly used in business. Have you heard of SMART, S-M-A-R-T, SMART goals? A SMART goal is a short statement that a person makes to lead them in the direction of what they want to accomplish. SMART stands for specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So in your goals, start with that. So measurable, specific. So if, for instance, you want to, and there are probably some people out there that say, I want to meditate more regularly. That's not a specific goal. That's a general goal. Make that goal specific. So make the goal, I want to meditate for at least 30 minutes in the morning and at least 15 minutes at night. And I'm committed to do that. It's an achievable, so specific, measurable, it's got numbers to it, achievable for you, relevant in your life, and time-bound. So don't say I'm doing that forever and ever. Make the promise, for instance, to yourself, I'm going to meditate for 30 minutes in the morning and 15 minutes at night, and I'm going to do that until April 1st. And then, if I don't continue after that, I'm an April Fool. But, so you make it specific and time-bound. So that gives you a kind of relaxation. Okay, with that, I think you understand, and go through this exercise, making it very concrete to yourself. So it's not just I'm going to meditate for 30 minutes. Where am I going to meditate? Am I going to set up an altar? What are the problems that I might face? How am I going to overcome those? So you want to come up with a very, very clear plan of action for your 3 to 5 goals. That's the exercise.
Are there any,
for now.
does
any
everybody
questions
get it?
About that?
Okay.
Everybody's got it?
Okay, let's take 20 minutes to do this.
And then we're going to stop here, but remember to do your evaluations and turn them in. You can turn them in to us or at the desk. And
turn them into the desk because we won't be around.
So we'll end. First of all, we want to thank you, but more importantly, we want to thank, I realized just now that I should have had a picture of Babaji along with Master, so we could have had both Krishna and Arjuna, and we could thank them. So let's thank them with a prayer. Heavenly Father, Divine Mother, Friend, beloved God, Jesus Christ, Babaji Krishna, Lahiri Mahashaya, Swami Shri Yukteswar, beloved Guru, Arjuna Master, we humbly bow to you all. We thank you again and again for your love, for your teachings, and for guiding us and driving our chariot. Om. Peace. Amen.
I also want to thank again all of you for being the guinea pigs for this pilot course. We look forward to receiving your evaluations. We've already had a number of ideas of how to improve it, but when I was looking at Master's picture, he's also saying those words to us. Thank you. Thank you for being open, for receiving my teachings. And thank you also to Swami Kriyananda, who created the essence of the Bhagavad Gita, the compilation of Master's commentaries, in such a clear, lucid, inspiring way. A few people have asked me what copy of the Gita we've been using. This is the companion copy to the essence. It's just all the shlokas as presented. It's not Edwin Arnold. We were in India with Swamiji when he was writing the essence of the Gita, and he would look at, he didn't speak or read Sanskrit, but he would look at many, many different translations of the Gita, and he would say, no, this is what captures what Master was trying to express. And so this is available. This is just the shlokas taken out of the big book, and it reflects the symbolism as Master presented it in his commentaries. So I think for Jyotish and me, we've been working on this course and thinking about it since last April, when we went to India, when the seed thought came. So this is very, very, very significant that we've had the first iteration, and it's been such a joy for us to share it with each and every one of you, and you've been just fabulous. I mean, I could not imagine a more receptive, attentive Sangha to share this with, so thank you.
Okay, so I think we'll go straight into our meditation. If you need to leave, please leave quietly. So we'll begin with the chant. We want to thank Ramesha and others who have been chanting, leading us in chanting all week.
In my house with thine own hands like the lamp of thy love. In my house with thine own hands like the lamp of thy love. Thy transmuting lamp entrancing, thy transmuting lamp entrancing, wondrous are its rays. Change my darkness to thy light, Lord. Change my darkness to thy light, and my evil into good. Touch me but once and I will change. Touch me but once and I will change. All my clay into thy gold. All the sense lamps that I did light, suited into worries, sitting at the door of my soul, sitting at the door of my soul, light thy resurrecting lamp. In my house with thine own hands light the lamp of thy love. In my house with thine own hands light the lamp of thy love.
Now, keeping the mind centered, and the body upright and relaxed, the eyes slightly uplifted. Let's pray together. I bow to the infinite,
I bow to the infinite,
within, without, and all around.
within, without, and all around.
Help me awaken to my own highest nature,
Help me to awaken to my own highest nature,
and let my thoughts, words, and actions
and let my thoughts, words, and actions
lead me to the highest happiness.
lead me to the highest happiness.
Let's do alternate breathing as you've been taught. Inhale through the left nostril. We'll do it 8 counts. Hold for 8 counts. Exhale, right nostril. Again, inhale the left nostril. Hold. Exhale. And inhale again, left nostril. Hold. Exhale. Now do 3 rounds of regular breathing on your own, making sure that the 3 phases, inhalation, holding, and exhalation, are even. Check to be sure that your stomach and abdomen are relaxed and that you're doing diaphragmatic breathing so that you get plenty of oxygen. Let's do a deep relaxation, starting with inhaling and tensing the body. Relax. Again. Relax. And one more time. Now relax the body from the feet to the head, starting with the feet. Calves. Thighs and upper legs. Hips. Stomach and abdomen. Relax completely. Let go of all tension in the hands, forearms, upper arms, chest and shoulders. Relax the neck and throat. Chin and jaw. Relax the tongue and the lips. Cheeks. Eyes and eyelids. Relax the forehead. Check to see that you're not holding any tension anywhere in the body. And now try not to move again until we finish. Relax the mind by bringing it into the here and now. Let go of all responsibilities and projects. Let's begin Hong Sa. Inhale, deep breath. And as it goes out, mentally chant. As it comes back in, mentally chant Hong with the inhalation and Sa with the exhalation. If the mind wanders, bring it back. The more you can feel the breath in the nostrils and concentrate there, always bringing the mind back, the more your restless thoughts will drift away. We'll just practice this silently now for 5 minutes, but remember to bring the mind back if it wanders. Now bring the mind into the point between the eyebrows and the forehead. And feel that you're expanding out of your body from that point. Your consciousness is going into space. But there's space all around. And because you're no longer in a physical body, just your consciousness, there are no limitations. And you've spread out now to all of the universe. All of the galaxies, all of the suns, the moons, the planets, they're all contained within you. All the atoms throughout all of the universe are connected and conscious and filled with bliss. And that is your nature. You are everything. Rest in the bliss of that realization. Make this bliss not just a mental thought, but actually feel it. Unbounded happiness, having no beginning, no end, just the existence of it. Feel that as your nature. See everyone and everything as a part of your own being. And just as you are filled with bliss, they too, in their inner self, are filled with bliss. And with conscious goodwill, try to awaken that bliss, first in your family and friends, they have any illness or darkness, see that bliss healing them on physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual levels. Let it spread to all people that you know. Because it is everywhere and everything, let it continue to spread. That bliss is touching this whole room, this whole area. The whole of the West Coast. Spreading across the ocean and across the country. Till the golden light of that bliss encircles the globe. That same golden bliss is not only around this planet, but infuses the universe and infuses every atom of the universe. Feel that unity, uplifting and healing, eliminating all darkness, all loneliness, all shadow. Now take a deep breath. Return to body consciousness. But realize, even though you are moving this one body, thinking through this one mind, still you're connected to every atom, every speck of dust in the universe. It's all part of your one being. And let's pray together. O infinite Spirit, I feel you within and without, infusing everyone and everything. I bow to you. O great Creator. I bow to you. My own self. Om. Shanti. Shanti. Shanti.